Welcome to Power Lunch Live. I'm Rhett Power, your host. It's great to be with you here already in May, man. It is just hard to believe that we're already in May 2021, 5 months in. And it's great to have you on Power Lunch Live today, spending some time with us during your hour here midday on the East Coast, morning on the West Coast. Fascinating show today. And we're going to talk about cybersecurity and the digital future with my friend Garry Kasparov. I think you all know who Garry is. He is the under-18 chess champion from the USSR. Won the under-18 chess championship from the USSR at the age of 12. He was the world under-20 champion at 17. He came to international fame at 22 as the youngest world chess champion in history in 1985. His famous matches against the IBM supercomputer Deep Blue in 1996 and 1997 were key to bringing artificial intelligence and chess into the mainstream. He's been a contributing editor at the Wall Street Journal since 1991. He's a senior visiting fellow at Oxford Martin School with a focus on human-machine collaboration. And his latest book, Deep Thinking, Where Machine Intelligence Ends and Human Creativity Begins, is a must-read and really sort of the basis for our conversation today. Garry, it is an absolute pleasure to have you.
Thank you very much for having me.
Well, you know, the point of the show is to have today's thought leaders, best-selling authors, people who are doing amazing work in the world that we can learn from. And that's why it's really great to have you on. I mean, you're arguably one of the best chess players in history. But your work with AI, I think, and your work with AI and technology might be one of your most important legacies of all the different things that you've done and accomplished. And one thing that you said a while back that's fascinating to me is you said AI will transform everything we do, and we must press forward ambitiously in the one area robots cannot compete with humans. In dreaming big dreams, our machines will help us achieve them. Instead of worrying about what machines can do, we should worry more about what they still cannot do. Talk about that for a second. And how do you address people's fears about technology? And will there be winners and losers in all of this?
Of course, there will be winners and losers. It's as in chess. There are always winners and losers. But there are good news, is that the pie keeps growing. So the losers also do better than they did before. We know that inequality is a real issue. And I don't want to sound callous about the downsides of automation and disruption on workers, but that's a history of civilization. We always, came up with new ideas, disruptive innovations, and before they created new jobs, very often they destroy the old industries. So it's very important to make sure that people who left behind, they will be taken care of. So we have to be creative these days. Maybe we should discuss a version of UBI, Universal Basic Income. But, this is the history of civilization, not a new thing with AI. I think the only problem is that AI, somehow, touches, our pride, because the machines in the past, they made us stronger. They made us faster. AI is invading our sacred territory, the intelligence. But intelligent machines, they should make us smarter. And I think, we just have to recognize it's a history of society as a history of technology that always, made our living standards better and our lives longer. And, if you complain about technology, you can start complaining about antibiotics, put grave diggers out of work.
That's right. That's actually a really good analogy, I think. And I think everybody gets that today, right? Tell me about what digital future means. I mean, I think we all sort of have our head around that a little bit, but I mean, that's pretty broad and that's pretty big. What do you think? What does that mean?
That's a funny question, because
it's not a fair question. I apologize.
No. This is because everything is digital these days. I'm sorry, it's not a funny question. It's a generational question, but we are of the same generation, and we remember how things kept changing. It's just I still remember vinyl records, and then that's just from vinyl records we went to cassette tapes, and then to CDs, and then to streaming. So and I can tell you that it's a couple of years ago, my son is turning 6 in July. He found his elder sister, Aida. She's turning 15 this year. So her DVDs, and he didn't know what it is. It's just some sort of the freebies, because he did. It's again that tells you that it's from generation to generation. Just up now, probably it's even faster. Every decade we have new technology, so everything is getting digital these days. So it's the cars, appliances. I mean, autopilots. We complain about car is just it's the driverless car is dangerous, but 90% of the flying time in the plane, we being flown by autopilot.
Yeah.
So that's everybody thinks it's fine. So yeah, and now we have supercomputers in our pockets. So the device that any of us carry without understanding the immense power in our hands, it's 10,000 times or more faster and more powerful than the all computing power that was available to NASA at the time of the moon landing. So it is just an ongoing process, and that's the digital future. That's because things are getting connected. Everything that was not connected is being connected now. So and I think it's while it creates new challenges naturally for our age, because we will never be as savvy and as comfortable with all these new technology as our kids. And it's every new generation comes up with better technique, and also it's not just technique, it's they already grow up with this technology. As my son, he's basically the most he's the savviest tech expert in the family, so just because he was born in 2015.
Do you think that we as we sort of just, everything is digital, and there's everything, we go down this in the future. If you took out your crystal ball and looked at the future, do we lose? Is there an expectation of privacy that we should always have, or should we sort of give up that anything that we put out there? It always, let me back up a second. It always surprises me when people get upset about a security breach at Facebook or a security breach at one of these companies, social media companies. When we voluntarily put so much information out there. So, how should we think about, I guess that's the question, is how should we think about privacy going forward? And should we have an expectation that we really have any?
No, we should have expectations. That's, we always hope for better. But in this case, we should also recognize the reality. So if we keep providing new data all the time, as we speak, as we eat, making pictures of our lunch, sending messages. So this data does not, disappear in the thin air. This data stays somewhere. And if data stays somewhere, you can assume that there are hungry hunters that will be looking for this data. Most of them are legit. Some of them are not. Some of them are smugglers. And we know all we can do is just to reduce the level of our complacency. Because I think the complacency, that's what really feeds all this black market for data. Because I always tell people, it's in the digital era, we have to follow the elementary rule of digital hygiene. Yeah, it's just, we know that we have to wash hands, especially now. This is at the time of the pandemic.
Right.
We know that we have to brush our teeth, but there's certain elementary things that we can follow by taking care of our devices. There's this stuff, to protect us from many threats. I'm not saying you can secure your data, no chance, but many things that that comes up with the elementary hacking technique, they could be deflected if you just you follow the elementary procedures. Right. And I'm amazed. I've been working with Avast for 5 years, and I'm amazed by the level of complacency regarding the data, because people say, oh, it's so important, but still the most popular password is 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8. And the second most popular is from 1 to 9. Yeah, and even with all these new technological tools that are available for the public, I can tell you very few people, very few people are just paying attention and willing to actually learn. Right. So yes, you have Google, Google offering you, that's the forget button. Most people don't know how to find it. I remember at one of the conferences in London, I did an Avast conference, and there were 250 people or so in the audience. I assume, not tech experts, but people, just not strangers from the street. It's a tech conference. Only 3 hands. When I ask how many people can find the Google button, the forget button, 3 hands.
Seriously?
Yeah, seriously, 3 hands. Oh, maybe they were shy, but it gives an indication, that it's so much, inside, that it's a psychological problem, because we just, we are angry. This is the Facebook took our data, but what did we do, just to protect it? And again, I don't think we can stop data being collected, because we're so, voracious, in producing data and accepting data. So the data is traveling, and somebody will grab it. Now, how we protect the data that's being collected, that's another story. And that's where we need to work out, a new arrangements, and what I call a triangle of the government, big tech, and the public. And it's the relations within this triangle is yet to be defined, because the public still doesn't know what it wants and how to influence politicians. Politicians don't receive a clear signal from the public, and the big tech doesn't care. It's the most of the problems related to Facebook or Google. It's a part of their business model, and as long as no one going after them with a big stick or with a clear message what you should do how to change your algorithms, they will not move their finger. So it's still for us to actually understand what exactly do we want, and how we organize these relations within this triangle for the future. I think that we have to find a way to empower the individual, just to make sure that people, they cannot control all their data, but they should benefit from this data being used. So there should be more responsibilities for the corporations, not only to guarding this data, but also to benefit those who willingly or unwillingly
became part of this data exchange. Yeah, it seemed to me too, when you talk about that triangle with the public, the government, and big business, that seems like a really smart approach, because it seems to me right now, when you look at and I'll just use the U.S. as an example, you look at when Jack Dorsey or Mark Zuckerberg comes and testifies in front of Congress. It seems to me like the government is way behind on what's out there. They're way behind on the there's a huge gap in knowledge of what needs to happen in terms of policy. It seems like policy's way behind where tech is.
But policy, it also depends on the public message, because the public plays a dual role. And on one side, we're the customers of the big tech, but we're also voters. In the free world, okay, forget Russia and China, and Iran, but in America or in Europe, we can influence the governments. And where is this message? And the politicians, they're lazy. They don't invent things. They sniff the public mood. And so far, it's the public message is very it's very vague. It's very abstract. And that's why you see this gap. It's the first hearings in the Senate. they were scandalous. The 5 hours they had Mark Zuckerberg there, and they couldn't ask just one decent question. You had Senate. You had so many experts there. Why on earth you couldn't come up with a plan? But then I understood, because just, that was a show. That was a show for the public. They didn't have a message from the public to communicate to the big tech, and that's why I think it's a very creative process. But I think that's where we can make all the difference, if we understand how to regulate the relations within this triangle.
Right. What do you think? You're working with Avast right now, and which is one of the largest security companies in the world, working on next gen technologies. And I was looking at some of I know that cybersecurity is expected to be a $6 trillion issue by 2020, in 2021, 10.5 trillion by 2025. Talk about your work there and the importance of, because to me that's a huge business problem, right?
Oh.
And so, yeah, talk about your guys' work there, because I think that's really fascinating.
Look, it used to be a problem. Now it's a much bigger problem for a simple reason. So much work that we do on our computers moved from the office to our homes.
Yeah,
so
right.
That's why, again, psychologically, people used to a certain level of protection that was guaranteed by the corporations. You had your firewalls, your
Right.
security bells and whistles. All of a sudden, you do the same work from home, and many people couldn't switch. They were not ready for this change, and that's why they became new targets. And it's all of a sudden, the pandemics offered hundreds of millions of new targets for bad guys. So for these online hunters, for data, for all sorts of information they can collect, useful information. So and of course, that's was demonstrated on the numbers when you look at the chart. So I just look at the number on latest Avast statistics. So in the year of 2020, on average, Avast blocked 1.5 billion attacks each month. Yeah, and also they blocked nearly 220 million files each month. So then you look at the phishing. On average, Avast blocked 34 million phishing attacks and 2.7 million unique phishing URLs. So they blocked. So you see the numbers growing, and then of course the ransomware. Again, on average, 4 million ransomware attacks each month in 2020. Yeah,
wow.
Another data. So on average, Avast inserted 1.6 million new unique samples into our sample set daily. It's a massive work, and the only way you can do it by fighting the new wave of attacks, it's by using machine learning and AI, because the bad guys also use this technology, and Avast as other players in the field, they have no choice but to come up with more sophisticated programs, and it's about collaboration between researchers and machines. So as I said, it's 1.5 billion threats monthly. So you need to actually train your machines to work and to make sure that you can cope with this avalanche. So the way it works, researchers feeding our machines with clean and malicious threat files to continuously improve threat detection.
What's the impact? And maybe you can talk about this a little bit. I mean, this doesn't just affect big business anymore, right? I think this is a problem for small and medium-sized businesses as well, which to me, those are the backbones of most economies. Most developed world economies are those small businesses. How can they protect themselves? Because they're susceptible to this kind of stuff now too.
Look, it's the smaller mid-sized businesses that they operate with limited funds. We understand that, and they have to make very important decisions for the future of their business by allocating resources so in key areas. And the threats, to these businesses coming from online crime is just, it's immense. So they have to recognize that they have to allocate some resources. And again, it's not that the market doesn't offer you that. So there's definitely, they should spend money implementing the security solutions. I think that's okay. Like antivirus solution. I mean, many simple things that must be done and should be renewed. So and because the consequence of data breach for these businesses can be severe. So again, for instance, ransomware can lock down the entire system and disable the regular business operations. Or data breach can have severe consequences for business reputation, and also can have, goes without saying, financial consequences. Right. So I would suggest that they definitely hire a dedicated IT security expert. So and just as a retainer. So just to make sure that they always up to the latest level of threat, because again things change so often now, and trying to save money on good advice could have dramatic consequences.
And I think the point there is that they're easier targets. So what are criminals
absolutely
do?
Easier targets, absolutely. And by the way, this is some people sometimes don't understand. They could become targets not because they're targeted, but because the network is of these attacks is so vast. So the attacks, they go on and on and on. They just look for weak spots, and that's why it's just they don't. The bad guys, they shouldn't be aware about the small business, just it's somewhere, in Upper West Side or in Midtown. So they they find it, and that's it. So that's just because they had million attempts using the machine learning, and they said, wow, I have 10, 20, good targets. Let's concentrate on them. So that's why it's just they could become victims of these online attacks, simply because the defense system is inadequate, and it will be identified by the wave of the attack that is not targeted them, but just it's looks it's like a big bomb, just it hits big territory, and then they find out, well, what are the pieces of debris they can collect. Right.
No, that makes a lot of sense, where they sort of scatter it out and see where the holes are.
Yes, absolutely. I would also just speaking about use of AI. So there's something that is just now it's a big deal. It's about explainable AI. So it's what is important is just for effective machine learning operation, you need the researchers to understand how to work with a machine. So it's not that you can expect 100% cooperation, because this is, if you want good AI, so you have to accept a certain level of unexplainability. But as it's knowing your machine. It's like it's driving your car, or riding your horse. So knowing them better than others, that gives you a competitive advantage. Yeah, and it also will help you to do the better training, and to it's like centaur. So operating together and making sure that human creativity always helps machine pattern recognition at the crucial moments.
I want to go back to sort of where we started at the beginning, and I'll come to one of our my last questions before this, or after this. But I wanted to get back into that conversation about sort of the digital future, and get your thoughts on where you think it's going to be really exciting. Like, do you see the driverless technology is really exciting? Do you see health tech as really exciting? What does, for you, what's the exciting part of this digital future, and where we're going to see just really you're really tied into this community with AI and machine learning, and so you probably better than most know what's coming. So what are you really excited about in that area?
Look, many people expect me just to be critical about machines because, at the end of the day, you mentioned these matches with IBM. Thanks for mentioning 2 matches. I won the first one. I lost the second one. Yeah. And I was the first, knowledge worker who had his job threatened by a machine. Yeah.
Right.
So, but, instead of, cursing machines and fighting them for the rest of my life, I just recognize that you cannot beat them, join them. So that was a time to actually reconsider our relations with them. And I came up with a concept I call advanced chess next year in 1998, bringing human and machine together and trying to find the best way to merge our creativity and just our ability to fantasize, to dream with machines, brute force, pattern recognition. So today it's normal. Today it's not a surprise, but still, people are concerned about the future. And I always tell them, look, while we always should be concerned about the future, and future full of surprises. I mean, the COVID pandemic is just one of them. But we should remember AI at the end of the day, it's a tool. It's not a harbinger of utopia or dystopia. It's not a magic wand, but it's not a Terminator. It doesn't pave our road to heaven, but it doesn't open the gates of hell. It's a tech. And whether we like it or not, humans still have monopoly for evil. Every threat we discuss today, and I've been discussing, over years, it's caused by humans using AI. So I don't see why on earth, AI, it's smart AI, the Skynet or other Hollywood brainwashing products, why they should think of eliminating humans. I have no idea about that. So that's why I'm trying to come up with rational arguments against the army of doomsayers that are terrorizing public mind. Because at the end of the day, AI, it's not making us redundant. It's consider it a promotion. We have a new opportunity. Now our success can be limited only by our ambitions. So there's so much we can do. By the way, 10 months took for the free world to come up with a vaccine against COVID. Why? Because we had AI power to look for genetic solutions. So this is at the end of the day, I think it's just we should just recognize that we have to, and thanks to the lessons from COVID, tragic year. So many of us had tragedies, personal tragedies. I lost my mother to COVID. So, but that was a warning to us that we must be ambitious. We have so much power in our hands, and again, and how do we use it? Not so effectively. We know this. We have to look for new ways. The new medicine. We just have to reconsider. Our investment in antibiotics and vaccines. We should look for space, outer space. We should look for deep oceans, and AI is a tool that will help us to reach out our wildest dreams.
Yeah, I'm glad you talked about the dystopian future part of that, because I think there's so much negativity in our press and our media and our sort of our society about, and maybe angst and concern about the future. But I tend to agree with you. I actually think it's really exciting, and to an extent, if you think about it in the long term, will free us up to dream and to think.
Exactly. AI will make us more human, because you look at the many jobs that's now are just are in danger. They're in danger because the machines can do a better job by just and if machine is more effective doing this job, maybe you're doing a lousy job. Now, how bad is that? I don't think it's bad, because we can explore our real human potential. We can stop doing the rote work. So and now find out what the human brains, what the human dreams can achieve, because so much work can be shifted to AI, but still, AI needs human guidance. AI will dominate any what I call closed system. The moment you have a design framework, then AI will do the job. But it's for humans to design this framework. And I see no evidence, not a shred of evidence that AI is capable of shifting data allocated in one closed system to another closed system. All the stories about singularities and AGI, artificial general intelligence, I don't buy it, And also I suggest people look at AI, it's like three components. You have artificial intelligence for machines. You have authentic intelligence for humans. But as the result of merger, you have augmented intelligence. Augmented intelligence, that's exactly the product of human-machine cooperation. And that's what offers us, I believe, the great future if we have ambitions and will, political will, the will of the public, the desire, devotion, resolution to move forward.
Yeah. Well, speaking of we have just a minute or so left, but we were talking before we came on about sort of the new reality via versus COVID and where we're going to be here in the next couple of years. What do you think the future? Just to get your thoughts, what do you think the future of work is?
Oh, I think the future of work will depend very much on the lessons that we learned. We were forced to learn from COVID pandemics, because for so many years we have been trying to mitigate risk, to reduce the risk, but we wanted to keep rewards. I think now we will see the dramatic change in the balance, risk-reward balance. The more risky endeavors will be accepted. It's not probably, it's accidental, but on the timeline of history, it will be considered not an accident that at the year of the pandemic that we got news from Mars. We got these images, and we had a major breakthrough from Elon Musk and a private at the beginning of the full scale private exploration of space. So we have no choice but to start changing these priorities, and the companies, the individuals that are trying to stick with this old paradigm. Let's wait until others do it. No. I think it will encourage us to become more innovative and take risk, and to remember, it's the pioneers, those who are at the cutting edge. So they are taking more risk, but there are more rewards. So that's taking risk is risky, but not taking risk will be disastrous.
Yeah, and that's not a way to live, man. That is not a way to live. This has been fascinating, and I'd love to have you back at some point. I know you're going to probably have another book out sometime soon, and you've always
Absolutely.
got something.
I will actually, I'm now working on, it's among other things, on a book that will talk exactly about the risk and about our complacency and about human potential. How can we release it, and how we can, make the pie bigger? Because at the end of the day, it's not about, you win, I lose, or other way around. It's about making sure that we as humanity win and move forward, and we keep increasing the pie and making sure that everybody will have a chance to make his or her contribution.
I mean, I think that goes to what you were saying. We were talking about where it is going to disrupt some jobs. I mean, AI is going to disrupt certain industries, but the real opportunity in that is, how do we retrain people? How do we sort of reframe education? How do we relook at how we are?
Exactly. So you had a magic word, education. That's probably a topic from another conversation, because that's something that requires our immediate attention. Because education today it's a form of antique. It has nothing to do with training our kids for future jobs. So if we want to make sure that they'll be ready for the new challenges, we have to stop teaching them what and start teaching them how. It's not about collecting data that they can do swiping their finger on the screen, but about applications, how to apply the knowledge. And that's where our experience of our generation could be helpful for them.
Well, I know you and I both have teenagers, so I know that's a conversation that's dear to our hearts.
Yes,
so,
yes.
Well, let's do that. Let's make a date and have another conversation when the book comes out.
My pleasure. Yes, thank you.
That would be
fantastic.
Rhett.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right. Well, have a great day. Thank you for spending some time with us here on Power Lunch Live. It's been a real pleasure to have you. We'll be back in the next hour, actually, with another program. And we'll also see you tomorrow at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time. But we'll see you here at the top of the hour. Thank you so much for being with us. And Garry, it's been a real pleasure.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.